Hi, yo, Silver. Welcome to another episode of America F1, where we are going to talk about the Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend. This should be one of the better races of the first four. Australia was awesome. China was alright. And then the last race at Suzuka was probably one of the more boring races we've had in quite a while. But Bahrain, it should be great. It should be good. There's lots of passing at Bahrain last year. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about it right after we do our intro at America F1.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeah, America F1. America F1. It's a golden run. America F1.
Oh, yeah. So last year at the Bahrain Grand Prix, we had a 1-2 by Red Bull. Of course, we had Max Verstappen destroying his then teammate, one Sergio Checo Perez, by 22 and a half seconds. Wow. That was when Red Bull was doing 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 to start off the seasons. But so far this year, we've had three different race winners. We had Lando, we've had Oscar, and we've had Super Max Verstappen to lead off the season. And I'm looking for McLaren to come back strong. Because remember in preseason testing, they just were head and shoulders above everybody else. And since the Bahrain Grand Prix, it's hot, it's in the desert, that tends to, I'd say, be good for the McLaren. And, the Mercedes doesn't do so well when it's hot. And let's get to the statistics. All right, so for the Bahrain Grand Prix, we're coming again with the C1, C2, and C3 tires, which is the hardest compounds. The same compounds we had at Suzuka, but there'll be a little bit more degradation because it's going to be hot or hotter than it was in Suzuka. Now, I take a sip of my nice tea here. It's really, that was really tasty. Wasn't that tasty?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Huh?
No, I'm talking about the tea. Don't ha when I say. All right, so let's give some statistics. Last year we had 36 overtakes at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and the most overtook driver was Fernando Alonso. Now the track record is held by, I bet you won't know this, but it's held by one Pedro de la Rosa. Remember when he was in the McLaren? That was in 2005. The most poles, the records by, of course, Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, and Max all tied at 3. Most wins, Hamilton with 5. The probability of a safety car is 50%. Oh, actually, no, that's wrong. The probability of a virtual safety car is 50%, and the probability of a safety car is even higher at 65%. Now, the pit stops, it takes about 22.9 seconds to go through the pit stop, from start to finish, and the average pit stop is about 2.5 seconds at Bahrain. So taking in an average of 2.5 seconds, then you should be in and out in about 22.9 seconds. It's 57 lap race. The lap record is 1 minute, 31 seconds, and almost a half, but 0.447, as we mentioned before, by Pedro de la Rosa. And the first time they held the Bahrain Grand Prix was way back in 2004. Track length is about 5.4 kilometers, and the average speed is about, I think it's 210 kilometers or kilo, which is about I think that's about 130 miles an hour. And in the pit lane, the limiter is at 49 miles an hour or 80 kph. Now, what about, what's the difference? Where are the passing opportunities here at Bahrain? Well, there's a long straight, and then the braking zone at turn 1. There's usually a lot of passing there because the straight's really long, and then you have that really hard braking zone into turn 1, and then turns 2 and 3, and then you have another straight, and then you can pass at turn 4, and usually the corner of turn 11. Now, between 5 and 10, you can stay close, and if you have like superior performance over the other car, you can, it's possible to make overtakes there, but typically the overtakes are the long straight, turns, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, and turn 11. But like the McLaren's going to be able to pass one of the back markers or maybe one of the midfield in 5 and 10 if they need to, if there's some chaos in the beginning of the race. Now, I look for this definitely be one of those type of tracks where in qualifying it should be a McLaren 1-2, and then it'll either be one of the Mercedes, most likely George. Red Bull could creep in, and Ferrari has a bunch of upgrades, which we'll talk about in a second. But the temperatures here, because it goes from a high of about 78 degrees, which is about 24 degrees Celsius, or 25 degrees Celsius, and it goes all the way down to about 18 degrees Celsius or 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's a 12-degree difference there between the beginning of the race and the end of the race. So that messes with your aero, that messes with not really with the aero, it messes with the setup of your car, and it messes with the tires. So you're trying to get heat into those tires. When it's warm, it's a lot easier, but then when it cools off, obviously it takes a little bit more friction and a little bit more time to get heat in those tires when it's cooler. The other thing that Bahrain has a lot of wind. Okay, and not only does it have wind, and the wind swirls and changes directions, it'll be going from east to west at 1 second, and the next thing is north to south. But since it's in the desert, guess what also affects the tires and the grip? Come on, you got it. You can do it. Sand. Of course, it's in a desert. So the sand from the desert blows onto the track. And in the cooler temperatures, obviously that affects the grip in the tires. So that's why everyone, at least as a fan, you love Bahrain. Because anything can happen at any time of the race because of the heat and the wind and the temperature, right? So I wrote some things down here for who's supposed to be bringing some upgrades. Now, Ferrari's bringing rear springs, which will make it a little bit stiffer, all right? They're bringing some stiffer rear springs. They're bringing a new floor, and which will help to narrow the diffuser. And the side pods are going to be kind of changed a little bit to increase the airflow, all right? Now, there was a little controversy about this because they were saying that they didn't know if they wanted to bring the new floor to this race or introduce it in Miami. And, there was some contention. So we'll see if they bring it because there was a report and, Charles Leclerc says this report is false, that Charles Leclerc was going to go his own way in the setup of the Ferrari, and he had a different way of setting it up than the team wanted to go. And Lewis Hamilton was with Luke Serra, and they wanted to go this way, and so Hamilton's garage is going to go one way, and Charles Leclerc's garage, they're going to go a different way, but Charles Leclerc says he's going his own way. Now, Charles Leclerc says that report was false. So we don't know if it was true or not, or we don't know that because they said it was Charles Leclerc saying that, and he didn't want, or the Ferrari people behind the scenes said, hey, you might not want to say you're going to go different than what the team is going to go. You might do that, but don't say it out to the public. And, because Ferrari it's all about the brand, and you don't want to talk about the brand and make the brand look bad. And if you do, we're gonna slap your hand and tell you it's Ferrari first, Ferrari first. Remember, always, 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 Forza Ferrari. Now, Merck's also supposed to change the floor edge, which will bring a little bit more downforce. And they're going to change their front wing and the upper flaps, the end plate, which will give better airflow to the front of the car, and also the floor tunnel entrances. So Merck is going to bring something a little different to the Bahrain Grand Prix. I think Ferrari has a bigger upgrade for it. McLaren's just bringing just some little incremental differences to their car, but it's going to be interesting to see which car really performs and what car upgrades really make a difference on this track. I still predict that it's going to be a McLaren 1-2 unless something extreme happens, like they crash each other out at turn 1, because, Oscar just doesn't care about those papaya rules in the beginning, and the papaya rules don't say that he can't pass, so he might just pass. Remember, he's done it before, and Lando didn't look too happy in the Max podcast room. Now, there's also some news right before this Bahrain Grand Prix, and let's look at it. It's Robert Reid, who is the deputy president of the FIA, and let's go to what he says. He says, and let's bring it up here. After deep reflection, I have made the difficult decision to resign as FIA Deputy President for Sport. I took on this role to help deliver greater transparency, stronger governance, and more collaborative leadership. Over time, those principles have been increasingly set aside, and I can no longer, in good faith, remain part of a system that no longer reflects them. Shots fired, shots fired. Stepping away was not easy. However, staying would have meant compromising what I believe in. This is about principles, not politics. Motorsport deserves leadership rooted in integrity, accountability, and respect for process. That's the minimum standard we should all expect and demand. Signed, Robert Reid. Ben Suleiman, there was a rocket just shot at the bow of your boat. Motorsports deserves leadership rooted in integrity, accountability, and respect for process. That's the minimum standard we should all expect and demand. Then he's also said, and this was later, decisions are being made behind closed doors, bypassing the very structures and people the FIA exists to present. Or I think he meant to represent, but it says to present. Now, what does F1 Twitter say about this? Let's go to F1 Twitter. Yeah, it all started with the FIA didn't correct 80-21. Well, they'd come with that. An organization which blatantly manipulates a championship deserves nothing better. So this is all out of 80-20-21 stuff. And some other people are saying, Cook Suleiman, more 2021. Suleiman is destroying this sport. This corrupt man should leave the FIA mafia. That's what it says right here. Let's see if we can find somebody who has something different to say other than everybody's pretty much talking about. One guy says, well, why are you leaving talking about integrity when you stayed when 80-20-21 happened? That's a good point, actually. How does the FIA not have a safety mechanism in place to oust the president when he's blatantly clear he no longer has the organization's interest at heart? That was from Perkin Warbeck. That's actually a good take. And this is a call for sympathy or jumping overboard to avoid a sinking ship. Either way, there were zero principles in what the FIA did in AD 21, of course. So 2021 was the time to demonstrate that you had principles. Everything else is just gaslighting. That was Patrick Doherty. And it seems that everybody is saying that the FIA is corrupt. My fear is without all the... this is a good one. Charlene says that, my fear is without all the decent people with integrity leaving, getting sacked, it leaves the psychopaths to vote him in for a second term in December. Now, he's up for re-election in December. The word is that he's been taking the money that he gets from the FIA and giving the money to the clubs so that he can seem in a better light. And then since he's given them money, that they would vote for him when the time to vote again for the new president arrives. Now, I have a different take on this. And my take is Ben Suleiman is from a country where they have kings and dictators. Like the king says this is what you're doing, and that's it. So he doesn't come from a democracy. Okay? So it's what he grew up in. So in turn, when you make him head of an organization, he's going to have the tendencies of, well, I'm the king. I'm in charge. I'm the prince. I'm in charge. I'm royalty. I'm in charge. This is not a democracy. What I say goes. And you can see it by those stupid penalties and fines that they're giving the drivers. Here's my guy, Carlos Sainz, who is having a little rough go at Williams. He says, at the same time, I was 5 seconds late. And now I have to pay a 10,000 euro penalty. I don't even know if I'm going to get another fine for saying this, but shit happens. No? So, because Carlos Sainz was late for the Japanese national anthem. And he's right. What if he was in the bathroom? I mean, you gotta go. And maybe he couldn't finish. And so he finished as fast as he could and he ran out there, or maybe he was eating something, or maybe he tripped, or maybe he was late because he was doing an interview. There's a lot of reasons why a man could be a couple seconds late, but to fine him 10,000 euros because he was late? I mean, what kind of organization is this? Things happen. Sometimes people are late, and sometimes it's because of things that are out of their control. So we're going to fine him for that. We're going to fine him for swearing. We're going to fine him for bad words. We're going to treat him like children. We're going to make sure you got to do interviews. You got to do this. You got to do that. And pretty soon, we're going to have a bunch of drivers in all these different series just sitting up there like robots and not wanting to really get into what's going on and what's happening in their team and what's happening in their psyche, because they're going to be so upset at what Ben Suleiman is doing that they're just not gonna play ball. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is actually what should happen. All these drivers need to take a stand and say enough is enough. We're tired of this and we're not children. Plus, you can't run Formula One with an iron fist like you're all God Almighty. Because you're not. No one's coming to see Ben Suleiman stand at the podium holding Max's hand. No one's coming to see Ben Suleiman in between the McLaren guys. No one's coming to see Ben Suleiman hand a trophy to somebody. No one's coming for that. Okay? No one's coming for that. We come for the races. We come to support our teams. We come to support our drivers. We don't come to watch Ben Suleiman. And as soon as he understands that, which he probably won't, because when you see people all like they used to say, if you know anything about rap music all up in the videos and he's the producer, then they think they're more important than the sport is. They think they're more important than the event is. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Now, moving on. My prediction, as I've already said, once again, before we sign off on this preview of the Bahrain Grand Prix. McLaren won 2, and I truly think, even though Ferrari's coming with these new upgrades, and my heart wants to see one of the Ferraris on the podium, my head said, or says, it's probably going to be George Russell. Because that McLaren looks pretty sturdy. It looks great in the corners. It's very stable. And they just need to eke out a little bit more performance out of it. And I think it's going to happen here at Bahrain. So my prediction is 1-2 McLaren, either Oscar or Lando, most likely Lando. And then George Russell to be third. And I'm hoping and praying that one of the Ferraris could be on the podium. I don't think so. But worst case scenario, maybe one of them will be in the top 5 again. And having said that, Lewis let out his hair, which I'll show up here. Lewis is coming. I guess, when you take out your braids, you kind of look like, we'll go back to, if you knew about R&B in the 80s, you would say there was a group that, had the jerry curls like Charlotte. What are they called? Charlemagne? No. Charlemagne, right? With S.H. Charlemagne, I think they were called. And they had the jerry curl juice, and that's what Lewis came. He had his braids out, and so his hair was like really long and like curly, and so he looked like one of Shalimar. That's their name. He looked like one of the singers from Shalimar. Go Google it, Shalimar. Shalimar. I'm gonna Google it right now before we leave. So go Google Shalimar. They were a group from the 80s, and they had the wet hair that was like curly, and that's what Lewis looked like when he came in to the question and answers into the paddock today. There you go. And guess what? Keep on racing, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing